So there is some interesting information that came out regarding Jaire Alexander a few days ago. I've yet to react to it, so I want to give my thoughts on this that came out from Rob Demovsky on February 15th in an article. I'll leave it linked down below. But here's what he shares. There are strong indications that Alexander's time with the Packers will end without him playing another down. Multiple team sources have privately expressed their frustration with Alexander's inability to stay healthy and or play through injuries. So first off, we all know that Jaire the past couple seasons has dealt with a lot of different injuries that have held him out long periods of time. And we already knew that there were some frustrations here. Gutekunst had shared in his post-season press conference here. This is a quote via Ryan Wood. There's frustration, I think, on both sides, General Manager Brian Gutekunst said, from the fact he can't get out there. That's tough. I feel for him because he wants to be out there. He wants to play, but no disconnect. So obviously, the GM is going to be frustrated when a guy is unable to go, and I feel like it's more of a just, unfortunate circumstance where, when one of your top players who you're paying a lot of money is unhealthy, not healthy, then, it's obviously frustrating. The part here that I do think is interesting is where Rob Demovsky adds, their frustration with Alexander's inability to stay healthy and or play through injuries. So that makes me think that potentially there are some team sources, whoever they are, that he spoke with, that maybe thought that with the injury that Jaire sustained, maybe he could have potentially played through them. It's really hard to know exactly what that means, but that could be a possibility. And when you bring up the fact that, the Packers didn't place him on the IR after the knee injury, it does make you wonder what the Packers thought of his knee injury initially. Ryan Wood shared an interesting thought here I wanted to share from PackersNews.com. He shared this. Despite Gutekunst's insistence, it seemed there was a disconnect between the player and team in 2024. Otherwise, why wait until 6 weeks after re-aggravating his injury in Chicago to place him on injured reserve? A trip to injured reserve cost at least 4 games, suggesting the Packers thought their top cornerback had a chance to play earlier. Alexander never made it back onto the field. And so with all these injuries and with lots of this kind of news, it's always hard to know exactly what's going on, and we never get the full picture about, what's really going on behind closed doors. And it could just be that, maybe Jaire's knee didn't heal as quickly as possible. I would say that's the most, or probably the most likely outcome, just because, as Ryan Wood shared there, if they knew it was going to be that long until Jaire could potentially play again, they would have placed him on the IR to free up another roster spot. So the, recovery took longer than the Packers thought it would. And so all in all, it just was an unfortunate circumstance there. And I think when you look at that, Rob Demovsky shared first, there are strong indications that his time with the Packers will end. And I do think that, when you just look at his time the past couple of years in Green Bay, playing slightly less than 50% of snaps. When you look at his quote from, one of the final days after the season ended, this is as well from Ryan Wood, via Ryan Wood, PackersNews.com. As he cleaned out his locker a day after the Packers' playoff loss to the Eagles, Alexander appeared uncertain on his future with the team. Jaire says, "I ain't got nothing good to say right now," he said while declining to be interviewed. "I wonder if I'll be here next year. There is nothing to talk about." And so I do think when you add all these things together, it does make, Jaire returning to Green Bay in 2025 a massive uncertainty. And I think that if you're the Packers and you're deciding what to do here, because Jaire is still under contract for 2 years, if he was a free agent, this would be a much different scenario, and I would, probably guess he'd end up elsewhere. But in this situation, the Packers really just have to make that decision. How healthy do they think Jaire is going to be in the future? Do they have any reason to believe that he is going to be able to play closer to 100% of snaps in 2025? Because if you think that there's a good chance, he struggles with injuries once again and only were to play, let's say, 50% of snaps, I think that in that scenario, if he's not going to, he's going to miss a lot of time, you're going to probably move on from him just because you don't want to, have to pay him a ton of money when he's not playing a lot of games. Of course, there's still the dead cap hits, which I'll get into in a second, if you do release him. But if you knew for a fact that Jaire was going to be healthy in 2025, I think that you decide to keep him, no doubt, just because he's been a top-tier corner. When he's played, even in the past year, he was really solid, and the Packers' defense was much better, in the secondary when Jaire is out there when it comes to like passer rating allowed, different things like that. And so obviously the big thing here is his injury history. And if you're Brian Gutekunst and you're looking at the situation, you do have to, be real and understand that based on the past couple of years, there's a very good chance Jaire misses a portion of time in 2025. And so it's just that uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen. And so you have to go off what's the most likely thing to happen. And I think with him missing all this time, it's most likely he misses time. And I could very well see the Packers moving on from him. And now the money is a big thing because with the money, that's really what factors into, whether the Packers decide to keep him, the risk to reward of keeping him on the roster, how much you're paying him, and then how much you save with him going off the roster. And we've talked about this a few different times, but I want to, bring it up one more time. But if the Packers release Jaire before June 1st, they'll save about $6.38 million, and he would be an $18.1 million dead cap hit on the Packers roster in 2025. So that's the thing there, where by releasing him, he still accounts for $18 million on your cap. You save $6 million, which isn't a ton. And then the other scenario is the post-June 1st cut, which would save the Packers $17 million on cap in 2025. But in this scenario, you'd have $10.2 million in dead cap in 2026. So you're basically splitting up the dead cap, not evenly, but you're basically splitting it up between 2025 and 2026. So that's the question. Do the Packers just want to, take the $18 million dead cap hit if they want to release him and then have no dead cap hit of Jaire in 2026? Or do they want to save $17 million in 2025, sort of split it up to where they have more money to operate with in 2025? I think it really just comes down to what the Packers want to do, the moves they want to make, the free agents they want to sign, because if they want to go all in on 2025 and really go after some big-time free agents, they could be willing to do him as a, cut him as a post-June 1st cut if they were to cut him because you save $17 million in the cap. But in the next year, you have a $10.2 million dead cap hit. So that's sort of the debate that the Packers front office has to go through. And then, of course, you have the option of him staying on the roster. And in that scenario, I think you're just hoping that he stays healthy, and you're hoping that, come playoff time, that he will be ready to go out there and play. And so that's the risky thing with Jaire. And when you add all these things together, initially I'd said that I predicted that he would be back just because when you look at the dead cap hit, it's like, do you really want to move on from him if you're only saving $6 million? But, considering that you're basically just accelerating the dead cap hit, it's basically the same same in the long run, releasing him. It just comes down to, the cap hit in 1 year versus 2 years. So for 2025, it's much better if the Packers, do a post-June 1st cut to save $17 million. If they did a pre-June 1st cut, that's just money that the Packers can't spend in 2025. So right now, it's really tough to tell what's going on. I would probably, just from all this, all these quotes, these things that have come out, I would probably lean towards Jaire not being back. But you never know what's going on behind closed doors. Maybe the Packers and him will come back together. But we will see. If you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe. Make sure you turn on the post notifications so you don't miss any Packers news. And I'll see you guys next time.